Imagine there's a switch on the desk in front of you, and you know that flipping it turns on a machine, but
You have no idea how it actually works.
exactly, it operates on a logic you can't fully comprehend. I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
think like you. It doesn't arrive at conclusions the way a human mind does.
Right.
Yet, its decisions are going to dictate global economics, national security, and, well, the future of medicine. And the thing is, we are already flipping that switch.
We really are. It's happening right now.
Welcome to our deep dive. Today, we're acting as your shortcut to understanding a massive civilization-level turning point. Our grounding source for this is The Age of AI and Our Human Future. It's a book authored by a pretty unprecedented trio, actually.
Yeah, you have former Google CEO Eric Schmidt, former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, and MIT computer scientist Daniel Huttenlocher.
Right. And the mission of this deep dive is to get you up to speed on how artificial intelligence isn't just, a new piece of software. It's something that will transform human identity itself.
Huh.
So, okay, let's unpack this. We've crossed a threshold, right?
We absolutely have. For decades, the whole conversation around AI was just an engineering problem. Like, can we build it?
Right, the mechanics of it.
Exactly. But now that the architecture is largely in place, the crisis is entirely different. The core question has shifted to, can we guide it wisely?
Got it, wise. I mean, that sounds almost urgent.
It is. The crisis is adaptation, because this isn't just a disruption in the marketplace. The authors frame this as an epical shift on par with the Enlightenment.
Wow, the Enlightenment. That's a massive comparison.
It is, but it fits. We're no longer dealing with a tool that just, speeds up human intent. We're dealing with an entity that generates its own pathways to truth.
And because it does that in a way we can't comprehend, it alters our fundamental interaction with reality.
Exactly.
I think the Enlightenment comparison in the text is, it's actually the perfect place to anchor this. Because for the last few hundred years, our entire civilization has operated on a specific epistemological foundation.
Meaning how we define what is actually true.
Right. Following the scientific revolution, truth was derived through human reason. Like, if a scientist makes a claim, they have to show their work.
You form a hypothesis, test it, trace the logic step by step.
Exactly. The limits of human knowledge were basically bounded by the limits of human explanation. If we couldn't explain it, we didn't fully know it.
And that is precisely what AI shatters.
Yeah.
We now have these systems delivering highly effective, sometimes revolutionary solutions, but the intermediary steps, the actual reasoning, are fundamentally opaque.
It's like having a brilliant coworker who always gets the exact right answer, but their math is completely invisible to you. I mean, how do you manage a colleague who speaks an alien language or logic?
That's a great way to put it. And, what's fascinating here is that humanity is experiencing a fundamental shift in its role.
Oh, so?
Well, we are no longer the sole creators of intelligence. We are transitioning into being its collaborator.
Collaborators.
Right. And this matters because the future really belongs to those who can strategically work with systems they don't completely control.
Which is, the mechanism behind this is what makes it so alien. We always hear about the black box. And it's not like the developers are maliciously hiding the math from us.
No, not at all.
It's that the math itself doesn't translate into conceptual human thought. Like, if you take a large language model, you're looking at billions or even trillions of parameters.
It's just a staggering amount of data.
Right. The AI is assigning numerical weights to relationships across a data set so vast that it's mapping patterns in dimensions the human biological brain simply cannot visualize.
A really great illustration of this from the real world, which kind of echoes the book's concerns, is the AI discovery of the antibiotic Halocin.
Oh, right. The MIT study.
Yeah. The researchers didn't program the AI with biological rules about how antibiotics should work. They essentially just fed it an enormous database of molecular structures and said, find something that inhibits this specific bacteria.
And it did.
It did. It identified a molecule that looked completely different from any known antibiotic, and it worked brilliantly. But, and here's the key, the machine couldn't explain its underlying chemical philosophy to the biologists.
It just saw the pattern.
Exactly. It merely recognized a statistical pattern across a multidimensional chemical landscape that human scientists hadn't perceived.
I look at it kind of like trying to navigate a sprawling ancient city. Like, a human relies on sequential logic. We use street signs, we follow a map, we take a left at the river.
We need a narrative.
Exactly, a narrative of how we got from point A to point B.
Right.
But the AI doesn't use streets. It calculates the exact coordinates of every grain of sand in the city simultaneously and just like materializes at the destination.
Right, which is incredibly efficient.
It is. But if you ask it for driving directions, it can't give you any because it doesn't experience the city as a sequence of roads.
And that lack of shared experience, that's what forces this fundamental shift in our role as a species. For all of human history, we've held a monopoly on high-level intelligence.
We were the only game in town.
We were. But the authors argue we're partnering with an intelligence that is incredibly broad and fast, but entirely devoid of human context.
But, I struggle with that word collaborator.
Why is that?
Well, if an AI spits out a chemical compound, or say a chess move that no human would ever conceive, and we can't trace its logic, are we actually collaborating? Or are we just, taking dictation from a new kind of oracle?
That's the danger, right?
Yeah, like with AlphaZero, the AI chess program. It famously played moves that grandmasters initially thought were glitches. It was sacrificing pieces for positional advantages that only materialized 30 moves later.
Right.
If we just blindly trust the move, because the machine usually wins, we aren't collaborating. We've just outsourced our judgment entirely.
And that is the exact tension the book highlights. If we simply accept the oracle's output without friction, we diminish ourselves.
So what does true collaboration actually look like then?
True collaboration in this new era means humans must provide the boundary conditions. Because remember, AI operates purely in the realm of optimization. It maximizes the specific parameters it's given.
Right. It just wants to win the game.
Exactly. But it has no model of reality. It doesn't know what death is. It doesn't understand economic suffering. It doesn't feel the weight of a diplomatic misstep. It only knows the data it ingested.
Which logically means our relationship with ourselves has to change next. If machines can cognitively outperform us in specific tasks, aren't humans just eventually going to become obsolete?
The book argues no. Technology doesn't just change tools, it changes human behavior and values. As AI becomes integrated into daily life, it forces a redefinition of identity, work, and relationships.
So what does this all mean? Like for you listening to this right now, what does this mean for your career and life?
It means that rather than competing on raw processing power, which is a battle we've definitively lost, you have to cultivate deeply human skills.
Like what?
Creativity, ethics, adaptability, emotional intelligence, long-term thinking. The paradox is that the smarter machines get, the more valuable human qualities become.
Because the AI provides the raw cognitive engine, but the human has to be the navigator. We have to determine if the destination actually serves human flourishing.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this shift in individual value scales up incredibly fast. Because if individuals have to redefine their utility, nations are having to entirely redefine their power structures.
Oh, here's where it gets really interesting. We're looking at a completely new kind of technological arms race.
We are. The book introduces this concept of intelligence infrastructure, and it fundamentally rewrites how we need to think about global geopolitics.
Because historically, a nation's infrastructure was physical, right? Tangible things.
Yeah.
Navigable rivers, railroads, electrical grids, the interstate highway system.
Right. Those physical assets dictated a country's economic and military ceiling.
But in the 21st century, that ceiling is dictated by computing capacity and data integration. AI is no longer just a software product. It's a new global superpower determinant.
And we really need to break down what that intelligence infrastructure actually looks like structurally. It's not just, having a few supercomputers.
Its entire stack.
Yes, a full stack. It starts at the base with the silicon access to advanced microchips and the highly complex semiconductor supply chains.
Right.
Then it's the massive server farms required to train these models. Above that, it's the data pipelines, the ability to aggregate and clean national-scale data.
And finally, integrating all that machine learning into the national grid, the financial sector, the military apparatus.
Exactly. And if a nation lacks any layer of that stack, they essentially become a vassal state to whoever does control it.
Which creates a staggering level of geopolitical asymmetry. Because unlike previous technological eras where advancements diffuse gradually, AI exhibits nonlinear returns.
Right. The systems iterate and improve upon themselves. So a slight algorithmic advantage today can compound into an insurmountable strategic lead tomorrow.
But there is a massive complication in this new arms race that the authors point out. And it's wild when you think about it.
The private sector dynamic.
Yes. During the Cold War, the cutting edge of technology like the nuclear arsenal and aerospace was entirely funded, developed and tightly controlled by the state.
The government had a monopoly on the Manhattan Project.
Right. But in the AI era, governments are relying on the private sector. The intelligence infrastructure is largely owned by massive multinational corporations, not just rival governments, but governments versus corporations.
The state no longer has a monopoly on the most consequential technology of its time. The compute power, the top engineering talent, the proprietary algorithms, they all sit inside private companies.
Which forces a very messy alliance.
It does. Governments must partner with these corporations for national security, but these corporations operate globally. They're driven by market incentives, not necessarily national allegiances.
Whether you are a citizen, a business leader, or a politician, understanding this isn't optional anymore. It dictates future security. But man, that introduces an incredible amount of volatility into the international system.
Absolutely. And Kissinger's background really informs this section of the book. He looks at the doctrine of mutually assured destruction.
Of AD.
Right. Which, however terrifying, kept the Cold War relatively stable. Both sides knew exactly what a nuclear weapon would do, and both knew a strike meant their own annihilation. The deterrent was predictable.
But AI completely breaks that predictability. We don't fully understand it, yet we're in an arms race. How do we keep this from flying off the rails?
Well, the nature of AI weapons and cyber capabilities is inherently opaque. You can count the number of nuclear silos a rival nation has via satellite.
Right, they're physical.
But you cannot count their algorithms. You can't measure the exact capability of an autonomous cyber weapon until it is literally deployed against you.
And furthermore, AI accelerates the timeline of conflict beyond human biology. The book talks about this concept of hyperwar, where autonomous defense systems react to threats in milliseconds.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah. If an adversary's AI launches a cyber attack, a human commander literally does not have the reaction time to process the threat and authorize a countermeasure. You are forced to hand the keys of your defense grid over to your own AI.
And this raises an important question about oversight, because this is where the opacity of AI becomes critically dangerous.
The blind trust issue.
Yes. If these systems are operating in a multi-dimensional logic space we don't understand, the risk of misinterpretation is extremely high.
Like, what if an autonomous defense system hallucinates a threat based on some spurious pattern in the data?
It might launch a retaliatory strike before a human even sees the alert.
Yeah.
The traditional decision loop is completely bypassed.
That is exactly why the authors view guardrails as an urgent systemic necessity. It's not just a theoretical exercise. Powerful tech without guardrails creates severe instability.
But the friction there is obvious. How do you convince any nation to slow down and build safety constraints when slowing down might mean losing the most important arms race in human history?
Right, the stakes are just too high in medicine, warfare, finance, governance. Blind trust in those areas could be catastrophic.
It requires an acknowledgement from all major powers that progress without constraints is a shared existential threat. Society must establish international cooperation, ethical frameworks, and strict constraints.
The book argues for an agreement that certain decisions, specifically involving lethal force or critical systemic stability, must maintain a human-in-the-loop architecture.
But enforcing that seems nearly impossible. Unlike enriched uranium, which requires massive detectable centrifuge facilities, an AI model is ultimately just math and code.
It's infinitely replicable software. If a rogue state decides to strip out the safety constraints on an open-source model, there's no satellite imagery that's going to detect that.
The difficulty of verification is immense, which is why the authors stress that domestic regulation and corporate responsibility have to bear an unprecedented amount of the load.
We can't just rely on treaties.
No. The architecture of the AI itself must be designed with constraints. We have to build systems that default to human verification when confidence levels drop.
So we have to prevent that blind trust. The sheer authoritative speed of AI makes it incredibly tempting to just defer to the machine. Like in finance, if an algorithm executes 10,000 trades a second, the human broker just wants to let it run.
Right, but if that pattern is a feedback loop caused by another AI, you get a flash crash that evaporates billions of dollars in an afternoon.
The exact same applies to governance. An AI might optimize a municipal budget by cutting funding to specific social programs because it found a correlation that looks efficient on a spreadsheet.
But the AI doesn't understand the cascading social degradation that follows. It doesn't understand human suffering. The human policymaker has to look at that optimal solution and apply the wisdom that the machine fundamentally lacks.
That dynamic the machine proposes, the human disposes, That seems to be the only sustainable path forward.
It really does. Progress without wisdom is ultimately dangerous.
Okay, let's pull all these threads together for you listening. We have engineered a scalable intelligence. We are navigating a massive transition from being creators to collaborators.
We're facing a new geopolitical arms race.
Exactly, and dealing with the urgent need to use human wisdom as the ultimate guardrail. The main takeaway here, use AI to amplify your thinking, never to replace your critical judgment.
Yet, reading through these sources, there is a final kind of lingering thought to mull over regarding human understanding.
What's that?
Well, if AI solutions are often beyond human comprehension and we increasingly rely on them for high-stakes decisions, will there come a day when we just stop trying to understand the why altogether?
Wow.
Could humanity eventually trade its desire for deep contextual understanding for the sheer convenience of a machine's right answer?
That is a profound question to leave on. As this technology reshapes the world around us, preserving our demand for the why might be the most crucial human skill of all. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, stay adaptable, and stay deeply human.